Okay, if I pushed all the buttons correctly, we are live on YouTube, we are live on Rumble, we are live on Locals, and we are live on X. And if you're watching on X, hey, try following, retweet, tell a friend. Maybe some others will try to check this out. And we have a full cast. The shocker news of the day is Legal Vices is at the start of the stream instead of coming in. So welcome to the beginning, Jeff. It's awesome to have you. And we have
this is what happens.
Yes, we have an intro, and I start babbling immediately. Oh, and we have uncivil law sneaking in to the side.
What's up, Kurt?
What's up?
What's up?
All right, how is everybody doing? I have no idea what cases we're going to talk about. I found a couple of things that came about, and Nate, I know you pay. I don't know. Is Nate? Are you on screen or are you hidden in the room?
Wait for the avatar to pulsate.
I'm right here. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. You never know. It's got a pulse or there's somebody on the camera.
Oh,
He's camera shy.
It is the battle of the avatars.
Apparently.
I've
got beef fish. Beef fish is best
like that.
avatar.
I like that one.
Oh my
I don't
God.
even. What is mine? It's just boring. Okay, I
think
forgot.
Jeff wins personally because Jeff is him as Elaine Bredehoft because we've been doing the Depp Heard sidebars.
Oh,
How has that
okay.
been?
That's horrifying.
Yes, it's amazing. I love it. We
That
were laughing at it for a while.
that person has a beard in that picture, right? Elaine has a beard in
Yeah,
that. Okay.
It's me as her.
Well,
Yeah, he did like an AI thing where he merged his face with Elaine's face. He did the same for me and Camille Vasquez, but it's not as cute or as sexy as Jeff's.
We've been doing the dramatic readings of all of the sidebars.
I've seen some of that. It's been fun.
Yeah, I've been having a good time.
Oh my God.
All right, so to something a little bit more tragic and less fun, sadly. Nate, you tweeted about this yesterday, and I tend to agree with you. How many of you guys have seen what happened with Leonard Cure?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, I have absolutely. Oh, the shooting on. Okay, that was okay. Yes.
And I'm being very, very careful. I can't show any of this because YouTube will immediately.
Is this the Texas guy?
It's the guy who was strangling the cop who got shots in the torso.
Yeah.
Georgia.
It was that cop was totally justified.
The FAFO definition guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, and God bless the thing that's caught on tape because otherwise, it's as always. He said, she said, and you got it on tape. It's like, look, this is what happened, and it's like, yeah, he. It's a standard traffic stop. For some reason, this guy starts fighting him. He starts trying to strangle him. He says aggressive language while he's doing it, and then the cop uses self-defense because he's currently in the process of being murdered and would prefer not to be murdered very much. So
the guy looked like he was clearly on something, which is how he seemed to be unaffected by the taser at first, and then was like swinging his arm. It went like up all escalations even before the cop shot him, took out his baton. I don't know if that was a nervous accident, but like how the guy was moving real funny when they pulled him over, and then manages to continue to operate after being tased and moving his arms to pull out the cables. It's just terrible. I don't know. I didn't know the backstory of the guy. People should know the backstory of the guy who wants to tell it.
Nate.
Well, that was the
Well,
thing,
I don't know the backstory. I just saw the video and I was like,
No, the backstory of the guy is that he was wrongly
convicted or something.
Yeah, wrongly convicted, allegedly wrongly convicted. I wonder if people are second guessing that now. But
there wasn't. So he was when he was convicted. I don't remember what the crime was, but allegedly, he's like in prison for 15 or 16 years, and then apparently they finally found some receipt that put him at a different location than where the, I don't know if it was a robbery or a murder or whatever. It couldn't have been a robbery, but some, egregious crime took place. And so the leftist media is spinning this as wrongfully convicted man.
Yeah.
Who was obviously afraid of going back to prison.
He was justified.
he was so apprehensive at being pulled over by a cop. Nobody should ever do that to anybody, by the way. Not if you're going 100 miles an hour, which he was.
And by the way, also just to add, he wrongfully convicted, but then also got like an $800,000 settlement or award after having been liberated. I mean, to me, it was clear he was on not drunk, like on drugs, because the body movement was bizarre.
Threw off those that was a full-on double score taser. It got him in the chest, right above the heart too, and he just threw it off like nobody's business. That's not a normal human being.
I'm certainly open to it, but I'll just take for my part that I'm willing to just adjudicate these as two completely separate things. So I'm fully open to the possibility that he was wrongfully convicted in whatever sense that might be, that someone screwed up or the prosecutor screwed up or whatever. We see that kind of thing happen all the time. And maybe he deserved that $800,000. That's completely possible. Also, unrelatedly, he tried to strangle an officer and he got what he deserved for that too. So if justice is getting what you deserve, maybe he got justice both times.
It's possible, because don't forget, we're talking about propensity evidence, right? Just because you were bad and this doesn't mean he did this bad thing. So
that was some of the left wing was also using he was only choking the police officer. He didn't deserve to be shot.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
Well, at what point are they allowed to defend themselves? Do we have to switch the races? Is that what it is?
No, let me bring up an article. I don't know if the article itself is from a reputable source. It was WJX.
Is it stupid article time?
No, dude. The way WJXT4 reports. Yeah, bitch, Cure said as he pushed his hand up hard underneath the sergeant's chin. I swear to you, this is the way an outlet, I don't know who they are, actually reported. He pushed his hands up hard under the sergeant's chin, also known as strangling him. I mean, I said, what a wonderful euphemism for strangling.
Sounds like purple prose almost. Like, was this a romantic encounter?
It was the video is shocking. No, my only thing about he got out of jail. He could clearly be angry at officers in general who he thinks may have framed him. Also, if you get out of jail and you get slapped with a lot of $800,000, I mean, it could lead to some bad life decisions, which might explain, I don't know, potential abuse of drugs. And then that's trying to piece it together. But the incident itself is shocking, but it's unquestionable.
Didn't he say to the police?
If we're doing euphemisms, how about he tried to give a hug to the officer's extreme upper torso?
Tried to massage his Adam's apple. That's what he was trying to do.
Didn't he say, "Do you know what my name is?" to the trooper?
Oh, yeah, he said something like that. Yeah.
But then I'm not sure he even said his real name. I think he said something crazy, which goes to the point that he may.
Well, look at this stylish guy showing it all up.
Yeah, one professional. Got my pink tie and all. How we doing, guys?
Doing good.
Someone's getting a copy strike for using the in the car vlogging tactic here. This is terrible.
This is not normal. What's happening here? You guys should be in different places.
No, we were just talking about Leonard Cure, Dave.
I think I tweeted back at Nate that I would have shot him much sooner.
Yeah, you did. I saw that. People are so upset. Like, you just shot him. I'm like, yeah, I would have shot that guy. He's got his hand on my throat. When else would I be able to shoot him, right?
Well, I wonder, Nate, since you were an officer, I mean, I've seen people, say that the officer showed remarkable restraint and, didn't do as much as could have done. Do you agree with that?
Yes, because it used to be called, it's called the force continuum. So you are building up to levels of force. So if you notice, the officer used what they call verbal commands. Get out, do this, and the person was compliant. Then the officer, when the person didn't put their hands behind their back, the officer went to a taser first.
And he said he was going to a taser.
And says, I'm going to tase you, I'm going to tase you, I'm going to tase you. And then when that guy, then he tased the guy. And the taser didn't work because unfortunately taser doesn't always work. Then the guy grabbed him. And when the guy grabbed him in wrestling, he still didn't grab his firearm. He grabbed his baton. So that's the next level. So this was like textbook going up the levels. The next level. All right, that didn't work. So now I'm going to baton. Baton is right under gun. So then after you try with the baton, the guy was just overpowering him. Then that's when you put somebody's hand in your throat, then you go to the gun, because now the justification is if someone is choking you with their hand on your throat, is that enough to kill you or cause serious physical injury? I would say yes. I think any reasonable person would say yes, and that would allow the officer to use deadly physical force to save his own life.
Also, isn't there a risk that this guy could get a hold of the officer's gun and cause more damage to other people in the community?
That's a little tenuous. Well, even the whole damage to other people. There's a famous case called Tennessee v. Gardner, where the officers kind of made that statement where they went to a burglary, guy was committing a felony, he was running, officer shot him in the back. It became a race case. It was like, oh, the guy was happening to be black. The cop that shot him was black. So that kind of killed the race.
Oh, that doesn't stop.
No, Nate. Larry Elder's the black face of white supremacy. That cop right there. Institutionalized racism. He's internalized the racism and hates his members of his fellow community.
I'm sure he was going to KKK meetings. He just had the hood on the whole time, so nobody knew. Like that Dave Chappelle.
Well, there is a black KKK member, by the way.
There
actually is.
Yeah.
Well, in Tennessee v. Gardner, Tennessee law said you can shoot fleeing felons in the back. So if somebody had just committed a felony and are starting to run, you could shoot them in the back. But the Supreme Court changed that to make it more contextualized. It says you have to. They even if they're running, they have to be a serious physical threat to someone else. You can't just because that would be essentially a summary execution. So
I'm curious from a police officer's standpoint. Do you think this officer did anything wrong? How is it? Did he get too close to the individual? I forget his name.
I think yes, I think there were some bad tactics. Bad tactics lead to sometimes these use of forces, but that still doesn't mean the officer wasn't justified in using force. Bad tactics would be okay. You have someone who's not compliant. You need to maybe get distance and wait for backup, right? Now, also, too, another bad tactic is sometimes the cops think they taught us in training. If you have the guy's ID, if you know who the person is, then let the person go. It's a traffic ticket, right? You can pick the person up later, right? This is a traffic violation. There's no reason to be hassling and running because you know who the person is. I got your ID. So sometimes there's the hero aspect of the guy's got to go now, which is true, but I'd rather go grab him with 20 other cops than me alone in the middle of the highway.
Unless you believe, as the cop did clearly, that the guy was under the influence of something, so letting him go, it's not just a question of him slowing down. He's still inebriated or intoxicated.
Yeah, if that happens to be the case. So, like, you're right. It's always contextualized. Like, if the guy's, he could kill somebody. But I think in some instances, if this person's just non-compliant, but you know who he is, you have his ID, then okay, well, go ahead, drive home because we'll get you later.
Well, toxicology come into effect or whatever, or another case, Nate, would be, would you just let him drive off, call the other cops and say, let's chase this guy down?
No, you wouldn't want to chase because Chase could also be dangerous. But again, I'm talking about from a New York perspective because in New York, you can't chase anybody because there's traffic everywhere, right? You can't go.
That's not true, Nate. Harry and Meghan proved that to be a lie. They were chased for 45 minutes. You are wrong, Nate.
That was so terrifying for them.
Yeah, it's funny when everybody, even the mayor's like, "That's impossible." But yeah, so in New York City, it's like, don't chase, right? Because we know where you are, we know who you are, and we know we're going to get you. So, but again, I don't. In this situation, what the cop did, I think, is reasonable. But as soon as he deployed his taser, he felt that this was going. You should get distance and wait for backup. That would have been the best thing to do. But the Supreme Court says you can't second guess an officer in this particular. Literally, in the law, it says you can't second guess an officer in the performance of his duties when it's second guessing is not allowed. So what he did, as long as it was reasonable and rational in that moment, then I think this cop is good.
I'm more than happy to second guess it. It just doesn't really change the analysis very much for me. It's like, what was he supposed to do? As you pointed out, the officer had kind of already tried everything. We tried verbal commands. We tried laying hands on. We tried the taser. It's like he's being choked. So what is the correct next step here? You tell me.
BLM has criticized, this very, stringently. And the media headlines are really interesting because they act as though this cop knew that this guy had been wrongfully convicted because, of course, if you're wrongfully convicted, that means not only do you get a pass for the rest of your life that you're never going to get arrested for anything again because you're obviously going to be innocent, but you should reserve the right to punch an officer in the face, do whatever you want, if somebody even dares question you. And so they make this whole correlation. The guy didn't know that he'd been wrongfully convicted. It had nothing to do with the circumstances. It's totally absurd.
Even if he did somehow know that, what then?
As an old
It's like, yeah.
farmer from Utah, I still can't figure out what the Bureau of Land Management has to do with this.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and there's the other question that nobody's bringing up, and I hate to say it because it's a poor excuse. Yes, he is wrongfully convicted of that crime. Does that mean that he was just a pure innocent citizen who never did anything?
He had a record.
He
had a record before he was convicted on that charge.
So
How many times, Nate? Did he only he got shot once in the torso?
I think it was once in the torso. Yeah.
And then okay.
And at very close range too. Yeah. But somebody he had, to be fair, the cop, his hand was on it, and he was calling him a bitch with his hands. But I didn't. One thing I want to say, thank God for the camera. If there was no camera, they would be like, "Oh my God, he's an unarmed black man," and blah blah. It would have been like, "Oh, it'd have been hell."
And also with the
that guy. I was gonna say he definitely wanted that cop to die. You could just the words he was saying and what he was doing.
Oh yeah.
You know what I think that might have been actually, Nate. Now that you mentioned about thank God for the camera, that might have been almost a recreation of Michael Brown, but actually caught on camera.
On camera, yeah. That's exactly because the cop even had Michael Brown had the cop's blood on his fist from punching him and all that stuff. And remember the whole thing, hands up, don't shoot. It was like all a lie. And it's one thing wild about Michael Brown is that even the black people in the neighborhood, when they first were interviewed, they were like, yeah, he ran at the cop and all that, and when the cop shot him, and then they changed their story up after the public pressure. That was like, yo, that's so scary. They're trying to put this cop away for life after in the moment saying, yes, this is what happened. The cop was right.
Well, I wanted to bring it up because we brought up Black Lives Matter and they want to talk about this. It's like, here we go again. You're doing the same garbage you did with Michael Brown. We know this was a legitimate shoot. Did
LeBron James tweet about this? That's the question. I'm going to his account.
The genius.
I don't know if he tweeted about this.
Maybe he's busy worrying about his son right now.
His people have been
tweeting about Tupac.
After the last one, I think his people like, before we jump on this, let's make sure this. Hey, did you guys?
LeBron James learn something?
Since I got all these lawyers here, have you guys heard about how they're trying to pack the court? Their new plan to pack the court.
What's the latest and greatest, Nate?
Died out.
No, they put a bill forward just now to pack the court. They're calling it. Let me pull it up. They're calling it the
Court Enhancement Proposition Bill for Justice.
Well, the Supreme Court Biennial Appointments and Term Limits Act. It establishes an 18-year. It establishes an 18-year term limit for Supreme Court justices, allowing the president to appoint a new justice every 2 years. Each justice would serve a total of 18 years and be given senior status after the 18 years.
How long has Clarence Thomas been in?
He's been over. He's over. He's over.
I'm just saying. Let's see who's affected here.
It would essentially.
18 years specifically.
Well, I'm waiting for some of the Semitic tropes to begin now because 18 is a meaningful number in Judaism. Why did they pick 18?
What
the act?
Why?
Well, but
it's the number for life. L'chaim is 18 in Hebrew.
The act also creates regular appointment schedule. So instead of just, when people die out, requiring the president to appoint Supreme Court justices in the first 120 days of their first and third years of their term, with advice and consent of the Senate. Also, to get around the court's
Article 3.
So to get around Article 3 lifetime appointments, the justices would continue to hear cases under Supreme Court's original jurisdiction as like an en banc panel, all the justices, while only the 9 most recently appointed justices would sit in appellate review.
Because I was going to say anything that involves
that is a
amendment, you can just laugh off automatically. But
so what they're doing,
okay, that's an interesting end run.
So the way they're trying to do it, just so what they're doing is saying, are we going to limit the jurisdiction of cases they can hear? We can't deal with the original jurisdiction. Everybody can hear those cases, but we can limit what they can hear under the appellate jurisdiction. So that's what they're doing. On the appellate jurisdiction, they can hear these, but under original jurisdiction, we can't do anything like that.
Have we done the math? So within a 4-year term, there would be an additional two judges
every 4 years.
2 every 4 years. 18 years they'd be removed. The term limits is not the end of the world, but 18 years from the average age of a Supreme Court justice means they're still going to be very young when they get off the bench.
Why 18 though?
No, they won't be kicked off the bench. They would still have lifetime appointments. So again, let's say after 8 years, there would be 4 new Supreme Court justices. So you would essentially have 9 plus 4, you would have 13. Those all
you can end up with like a 40 panel.
You can
bench, 40 member bench.
You know how in the Second Circuit there's like 30 judges when it go en banc. That's what they're doing. So when it comes to cases of original jurisdiction, all 13 judges would hear that case. But when it just comes for stuff for appellate jurisdiction, things that are coming up from the circuits, it would only be the most recent 9 that would have jurisdiction to hear those cases. The other ones would be essentially senior status.
But okay, so what happens after the 18 years? Do they get senior status? What does that mean?
You get senior status, meaning you can only hear cases under Article 3, which would be original jurisdiction cases.
Jesus, why not? I mean, that's an amazing modification of the Constitution.
Yes, it's a creative interpretation for sure.
They're working around because again, there'll still be Article 3 judges. They'll still be able to hear original jurisdiction, but Congress can limit what they can hear under appellate jurisdiction, and that's how they're fixing this law. That we're only going to let certain judges. The senior judges can't hear it. It's only the appellate judges. And
they can change the appellate jurisdiction, but I'm not sure they necessarily can change the judges like that. But it's an interesting idea. I'll have to get into it.
I was going to say, Kurt, what would qualify as original jurisdiction under Article 3 that we're not already seeing?
Well, no, you do see those cases. There are controversies between states is the most frequent one. Typically, water rights is the most common way to get there, and it's dispute between states. Disputes involving ambassadors, you don't usually see a lot of those, or other ministers. And I have to double check Article 3, but those are the big ones.
But that you would need a constitutional amendment to say those Supreme Court justices can't hear those cases. So what they're doing is saying, okay, we can't do anything about that, but we can do it. And obviously, if you think about it, the appellate jurisdiction is really where it's at because that's your Roe v. Wade, that's all that other stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's essentially what they're trying to do. They're trying to pack the court and allow Biden or whoever the Democrat to give you 2 more justices. And the justices that would be out would be the 2 most conservative justices. You got Thomas would be out, Roberts would be out, and Alito would be next on his way out. So you're losing 3 conservative justices back to back to back.
Right. That's why I was talking about how let's do the math on the 18 years. And it's like, okay, by the time it comes into effect, who would have come in at the 18-year mark? I mean, come on. It's so freaking obvious. Yeah, at least they're not hiding the ball.
Transparent, I would say, just a little, just a tiny bit.
Just a skosh.
This could blow back on them just as easily.
Like the nuclear
5-10 years down the road.
Well, or would this pass, Nate, before the next election? In theory, or could it?
Well, they're saying they want it there, but they don't believe it's going anywhere because everybody knows what it's about. So they're trying to pass it now. It's in front of the Senate. The reasons why the Democrats, because obviously it's the Democrats, the reasons why the Democrats saying it's to stop the political piece of court. So right now it's become too political and you have too many political judges on there. So it'll give the court a regular rotation. This is quote, these proposals aim to ensure new justices are appointed every 2 years. Before it was 4, but now they've lowered it to 2. Thus setting up a regular rotation that could enhance the court's predictability and possibly its fairness.
Hold on, enhance its predictability?
And possibly
say the quiet part out loud there.
And also it would allow the court to be more responsive to the people versus the other way around. So in other words, you're getting judges who are more socially conscious than somebody who's been there for 80 years who doesn't know what's going on in the streets. So they're saying we need more judges who know what's going on in the streets.
Woke.
Say more about the
What is it called when you say one thing? Oh, sorry.
I wanted to hear more about the predictability piece of that, because I thought that the whole purpose of the Supreme Court was, for the Supreme Court justices to defer to the law and to defer, and to bring out opinions that, were relevant to cases. Like, where is predictability? You want
I think maybe the predicting they're talking about is they didn't predict that Trump would be able to appoint all these people, and they predicted they'd control things, and this is really about Ginsburg.
Well, I mean, Trump would have still gotten 2 under their plan, so he got 3, so he wasn't outsized in that respect.
Well, they sure didn't like it.
Well, okay, let's go with the predictability thing. Continuous Schindler. How about
it's weird
predictable if it matches the Constitution? That it should be ultimately predictable because that is the basis. But I don't know. It's interesting. Dave, you started to say something.
Oh, I was just going to change.
No, I was being a little sarcastic. I said, what is it called when you say something and you but you mean the exact opposite and everybody knows it? I feel like there's a term for that.
Democrat?
Oh,
so I'm sorry. That's not nice.
Democrat, that's true. Here he is. This is the guy. He's making his pitch for the term limits.
Okay, let's see.
Tell me.
What the bill does by providing term limits for justices
Volume up.
is several things. First, it provides fresh appointments to a damaged and captured court. Second, it reduces the opportunities for political manipulation of Supreme Court vacancies. It does the court no service to have justices say that they are nonpartisan and then choose to retire for purposes of partisan timing. Third, the bill meets a very strong public desire for reform at the court. By 65 to 23, a 42-point margin, the American public wants to see this court have term limits. So
The American people are stupid.
That goal. And by the way,
I don't believe those numbers.
23 is probably a low point. If we're able to succeed in our investigations and more facts about certain justices' misconduct becomes known, I suspect that the impetus for reforms like this will only grow.
Oh, this guy just lost me. Did I see properly that video had 7 thumbs up?
Yes, I think 7. That's it. Nobody's watching that stuff. We're the only nerds who watch that stuff.
All right. Well, I hopefully that goes nowhere. It's a complete sham. And as Dave was talking about earlier, this pendulum, it swings both ways. Does everybody remember the nuclear option? Where they were so mad that they couldn't get a justice through that they changed the rules to where it's just a straight up or down vote, which, by the way, has caused them to eat multiple justices when it came back around because it's a simple up and down vote. It used to be a supermajority last time I checked. And who was the last one supermajority? Was it Roberts that got in a supermajority?
No, it was a 60. Yeah, 60 vote. The 60 vote.
Okay, so not quite a super majority, but pretty close. So every time they change the rules, it's like you guys are being stupid because things change in 4 years, 8 years. While it works and looks beautiful to you now, you're going to eat it later, in my opinion.
I guess they're hoping that the trend will be in their favor on the whole. So
fair enough.
Yeah, but they always gamble and lose on that.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, otherwise it's too dark. I'm going to jump to the next subject here.
It better be Sidney Powell.
No. Anyways,
Make it Sidney Powell.
It's money. I like money. To super chat. I'm really discouraged by the way the GOP. I don't see Jordan ever getting the votes. Don't know what the answer. And now the New York judge wants to jail Trump for a post. I'm just at a loss. Okay, so Jim Jordan, interesting. What are your thoughts on that? He was running for speaker, did it twice, lost, said, never mind, I'm not going to, and then said, oh, never mind, I'm going to do it until the end of time.
I think the Republicans are being absolute idiots. The Democrats know how to unify as a party. They might have had many problems with Nancy Pelosi, but Nancy Pelosi never had a challenge because the Democrats know how to follow their leadership. They should have never gotten rid of McCarthy. They should have stuck with him. You know, he was doing fine. Is he my favorite choice? Not necessarily, but, you know, it's like you stick by your guy. You don't undermine him every set because you don't necessarily get everything you want. The whole thing is incredibly dumb. I don't know who they're going to wind up with. They've managed to sabotage themselves and make the entire party look ridiculous.
Isn't that, it's funny you said that, though, the Democrats can stay together and all that, but isn't that the nature of their political philosophy, collectivist
that's
philosophy?
Party
independent, populist split with the conservatives, etc. Just the nature itself, I would argue, causes some of this fractioning. But I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
No, I'm saying blind loyalty is a flaw, not a feature or not an asset. And I'm not trying to poop on uncivil. I'm just saying, like, I think, first of all, they had good reason to yeet McCarthy. and endless spending and just slapping together these bills that nobody can possibly understand what's going on in these spending bills without breaking them down, breaking his promises. That's it. He had an allegiance and he took a hot steaming dump on it. I don't know what the reluctance is about Jim Jordan. There's a lot of stuff, nuance that I don't yet fully appreciate. I thought the left would love Jim Jordan, at least more than McCarthy maybe, but some stuff I just don't understand.
No, it's a payback because they rejected Scalise, so then it became Jordan. So the McCarthy Scalise people are saying, screw you, I'm never going to. I think these are just internal factions. I don't know if they even really care who's speaker other than it's maybe not going to be that guy or that side. It can't be MAGA, if you will, or whatever.
At this point, they should just pick a name out of a hat for all the good it's doing them.
I think I totally support that for every single elected position. There's no way that any of the original founding fathers would have imagined what happens in the halls of government today. We should just go back to some poor farmer who's on the voter rolls, pick his name out of a hat and go, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, you have to be president for the next 4 years. I'm sorry, Joe Schmo, you have to be a senator. You would get so much more done because these people have better and more important things to do, and they would get through all of the BS. And it's a weird, it'll never happen, but that's just my thing.
I like that. That's one of those ideas I think that looks so good on paper. But if you think we have a deep state issue now or bureaucratical problem now, what you just suggested will amp that up to 100% because now you have no people from the farm who's incompetent and their staff who's been planted in there forever will make all the decisions and you won't actually have a leader, in my opinion.
Just don't let them have any staff.
Okay, well,
there we go. Eliminate the deep state. Let's start with that.
I know it's just, but you know what I'm saying. It's just,
at the end of the day, I would be happy if the federal government implodes on itself, and Trump did a good job of stalling them out, and let the states just take over and do their thing. So, I mean, nothing's going to get done without a speaker. So let it just drift off into infinity.
Well, not much can get done right now, which is kind of good with the split government, and then you even have a split Congress. So whatever Congress puts forth, the Senate can just spank and throw it back down anyway. So it's kind of the lame duck of the lame duck of the lame duck scenario through 2024, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think they should take DC, move it to North Dakota for 2 years, and then after that, put it on the North Pole.
That works. Or
and at least they'll be miserable.
How
far away.
How about
this? Them drive the speed limit through Wyoming. You know.
I like that. What was it? The Supreme Court, wasn't it the Supreme Court that traveled to the different locations at one point? I would like Congress to travel to different locations around the country when in session. I think that would be very interesting to actually have to face constituents in different locales versus building up this little Roman Empire thing they have going in DC.
But that's what they're supposed to do, right? That's why they're from different states or different whatever, so they can, they're supposed to go home and hear from their own constituents about what they care
right,
about.
But I want all of them to hear from different constituents in different states, not just the one who goes home and lies and says, I'm going to tell it to them when I go back there again and again.
But there's nothing that requires them to go back there. So if you required, like you said, a moving Congress, then they're required to be there.
It's just a thought, but I think it would be nice rather than, you have this thing and you're building all these buildings and stuff, and K Street. It's like, can we spend more of the year away from K Street as an example? How about they have to travel too? How about we get to see the roaming army of
K Street would go on the move too. They would.
Of course, but you get to see them moving. When things are moving, you can see a lot of things sometimes falling apart or losing.
Furby Slayer is saying, Eric, that's stupid in chat. But no, I mean, that's literally why it's called the circuit court. The federal, they used to ride the circuits and go around to the different jurisdictions. And that's literally why it's called the circuit court. Yeah. And that was one cool thing that I really, really enjoyed getting to see was my third year of law school. Utah's in the 10th circuit. And the judges actually came and held arguments for, I think it was 3 days in Utah, and it was amazing to watch. It was an honor to actually watch this happen. The federal circuit, they rode the circuit and came around that year. It was awesome. That's literally why it's called the circuit court.
We still have some state circuits in Michigan where judges will travel around different counties and stuff. We still have it. It's kind of cool.
No, that's pretty, yeah.
I don't know.
M Judge will travel. I like it.
Cheesebro just pled.
Not surprising.
No, just plead. I think he's talking about. Is that not encouraging Trump to? Who's Cheese? Oh,
He's one of the lawyers. He's one of Trump's lawyers. One of the many.
Let's go Google it in real time.
They're pleading like crazy.
No, I said it was the Sidney Powell is just going to be the first, and it's going to be the easiest, and they're all going to be built up on Sidney Powell the same way they built up all their stupid indictments on the New York indictment.
Well, hold on. I gotta say one thing. Barnes was 100% right about Sidney Powell, because I remember watching that live stream where he said she is going to be sued out the oblivion because what she said is madness, and he was right. He was totally right.
Yeah, for a while, I'll put myself in the weed.
Yeah. Oh, he took heat for it too, but he was right. I thought he was crazy, but no, he was right. He was 100% on point.
No, and I'm listening to everybody's take on Sidney Powell pleading, and I think the proper interpretation is Barnes's interpretation. Although I said it first because he did his bourbon with Barnes last night. It's bad. I mean, it's bad for the broader scheme. It's very good for Sidney Powell. She'll get off scot-free, although I think it damns her defamation claims, or the ones that are issued against her now. This is terrible.
She was pretty damned in the first place, to be honest.
She was very damned in the first place. But my goodness, do you remember the Kraken? Like, where's the Kraken? Oh, it's coming, Viva. You haven't seen it yet. You might not even notice when you see it. It went from, I've got hard evidence of flipping Hugo Chavez's spirit in these machines to pleading guilty. And I don't care what she pled guilty to. It's atrocious.
I got a pushback about my concept here. It looks like Tucker Carlson had an interesting point about how it used to be elected officials lived in D.C. with their families, but now only go to D.C. when in session. The different parties mingled more often. I guess my point is, I don't want them to mingle with each other. I want them to mingle with the people, like all of the people. So I get the point, and I like the conviviality aspect of it. And I remember that Tip O'Neill, those good old days that they would fight and argue all day, and then they have drinks together at night because they were buddies. But
I kind of like the idea of actually forcing them to all live in the same building. That's actually a fun idea. Let's go completely the other way. Let's find a building they can all live in. Yeah, Big Brother style, shared kitchens. We'll do a reality TV show. It'll be great.
Yeah, all in one room studio apartment.
Yeah.
Dorms. We have the congressional dorms. Oh no, that would be great. Or barracks. Steve, open barracks. That's even better.
Old school.
In the winter.
Yeah. I think that's great. Very quick for David. What are your thoughts on Newsom now going to China and the Middle East?
I think I have to go back to my predictions, but I said it wouldn't be Biden as the candidate, and Newsom, however unpopular he might be, seems like the chameleon to take the place. What's he going there for?
Yeah, that was my question.
His repertoire. I don't know if it's for 2024 or 2028. I mean,
it's going to be 20. I think it's going to be 2024 because did everybody see Biden's speech yesterday, or whatever the hell he did yesterday? There was a 60 Minutes clip. The dude doesn't know where he is anymore, and I mean, it's like. No, it's
in the
terrible.
First place, know where he was.
No, but it's like it's so much worse. Hold on, let me see if I can get this.
But it's a continuum. It's almost like everybody is getting insensitized or desensitized to it because it's always a gaffe. It's like a continuous Biden. What did he say? What did he say? I can't understand. This has been going on for 2 years plus.
That was pre-recorded. I guarantee that was pre-recorded, and that was the sixth take, and it was the best one, and they just aired it.
well, if that was the case, you know what? Somebody is pointing out pictures showing like his chin developing different, like different looks and everything. I'm like, if you're pre-recording it, I would think you would bump it with some AI, or dub it. No, I'm not kidding. I would use AI and try to make words that kind of match the lips to make more sense.
Biden deepfake.
But he had a stutter 40 years ago, you insensitive bastard.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me see. David sent me a link.
I don't even know what he was trying to say, but I watched it.
I don't know what he's trying to say. It's just, let's see.
I'm trying, and I'll send you another one. I just want to make sure that it's not modified.
All right. Let's see.
Are the wars in Israel and Ukraine more than the United States can take on at the same time?
We're the United States of America, for God's sake.
The 95th mayor.
Proclamation in the history, not in the world, in the history of the world. The history of the world.
Look at those eyes.
We can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense. We have the capacity to do this, and we have an obligation to. We are the essential nation, as to paraphrase the former Secretary of State. And if we don't, who does?
What?
Well, he was going good, actually. For him, the first part was actually semi-coherent.
No, because
it's going to go off the rails. So
no, but the first part, he can't pronounce the words. You look at those beady, dementia, and I'm not saying this to be mean. Those are the eyes of a dementia patient. Look at the beady eyes. Yeah. They have no idea where they are.
Looks like the guy from Deliverance growing up.
I'm not going to... Again, he's going off the rails as it goes, but early on, stuttering, if he had a stutter, tripping on America and rolling it, I knew what he was saying. So I'm just trying to be fair. It was actually somewhat understandable. Now he's going into the typical Biden. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Go to the second one.
The essential nation is to still maintain our overall international defense. We have the capacity to do this, and we have an obligation to. We are the essential nation, as to paraphrase the former Secretary of State. And if we don't,
to paraphrase the former Secretary of State,
we are the essential.
You gotta like focus.
It's almost like he runs out of the sentence, like the sentence is exhausting, and by the end of it, he's gone.
And if you haven't seen the one on the plane is horrifying. He has no idea where he is. You got Blinken behind him, like the Grim Reaper. It's the second link in the private chat, Eric. It's I don't know. I just pulled it off someone's Twitter feed. I just want to make sure it's not an altered video. But you got Blinken staring over like, "Don't screw up, old man."
Well, but there are worse ones too, where what is it? He was speaking to a crowd and they just cut off his microphone, or just okay, thank you very much. They just
they
don't
played
even
like the Oscars,
bother.
Like your speech is getting too long, music. Like
it can't get worse. It can't get worse than this.
Okay, look at his chin.
Yeah, it's like it's
There's
bizarre.
something weird about that.
At the hospital, sir, people all over the region are upset about the hospital and don't necessarily believe you or the Israelis that they didn't have anything to do with it. You have a message to the people in the streets right now.
Well, I can understand why in this circumstance they wouldn't believe. I can understand that. But I would not notice. I don't say things like that unless I have.
Look at Blinken.
Source from which I've gotten our Defense Department says it's highly unlikely that Israelis would have a different footprint and have intercepted some. Anyway,
I can't finish.
Anyway, you get it.
Notice it.
The thing with the thing.
That's where Blinken breaks out the taser and it's like.
Well, you know that there's always that concern. Or what about when he arrived in Israel and that really nice female officer kind of was nudging him, like saying, "The carpet's over here," because he's walking off the carpet. I don't know if you saw that shot. I don't know if he sniffed her. He might even be beyond that. I don't know. But he was sitting.
She's too old.
He comes off the plane. He's walking. And he's kind of drifting to the right, and he's up. And she kind of leans over and does this whole over here, and they kind of goes in.
Does the border collie redirecting him thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's if the policies weren't so terrible, it would be terribly sad. It really is just. It's a nightmare. But again, how many of these have we seen? He shakes hands with the wall. He does this. He does it. It goes on and on and on. And I think that everyone has just gotten desensitized to it. I mean, you could actually probably put together a jump cut of 30 minutes of Bidenism.
And remember the absolute firestorm that happened when George Bush accidentally walked briefly towards the wrong door to get out of the meeting.
Yeah. Well, this is the same George Bush that caught the shoe. I mean, who was pretty nimble. I mean, whatever you think of his policies, I'll never forget that shoe coming up and it just went. Toom.
I mean, I remember when, during the Bush administration, I bought my cousin it was like a doll from one of those stores, and it had it was a figurine of George Bush, and it had all of his, his lines where he's like, rarely is the question asked, is our children learning? Now, at least he could speak in intelligible sentences. And I miss those days. I really do. When that was idiocy.
Or nuclear. He couldn't say.
Nuclear.
Yeah.
He would say it wrong though. I forgot the way he said it.
Well, he would say nuclear instead of nuclear.
They're both correct. They're both in the dictionary.
Yeah. It's like 3/4 of the U.S. pronounces it nuclear.
Nuclear is not in the dictionary.
But anyway, yeah, I do remember that. But then that was just a carry on from Dan Quayle. That's a typical move.
Yeah.
And then you can go to Gerald Ford, who tripped, and Chevy Chase made a whole big deal out of that. As a matter of fact, I was talking to my wife about
getting
that.
Attacked by, was it Carter or Ford that got attacked by the rabbit on the golf course?
Well, I'm not sure. My wife and I were talking about that. I was saying, Chevy Chase could come out of retirement and do Biden now. Because the age he's gotten old, and Biden's old, and he could do pratfalls up the plane steps.
It was Gerald Ford. He was attacked by the rabbit on the golf course. That's what it was.
It was Ford. Okay, so we have Ford. Okay, yeah. Carter had his problem with his brother and things. And
was it Carter? It was Ford.
Attacked by a rabbit. What evil things must you have done to attract the ire of a rabbit?
Well, just ask the guy in Monty Python, the rabbit in the cave. That's what that reminds me of. The wicked rabbit, it's like, oh, it's so cute. How harmless could it be? And then it kind of, gets you at the throat, and there's that scary music. I didn't know that happened in real life.
Wow, we got a lot of tips and super chats.
It was Jimmy Carter. Sorry, it was Jimmy Carter. Apologies.
Who's the one that killed the? Who's the one that killed the Punxsutawney Phil, the groundhog?
What?
For Groundhog Day, he dropped it and then it died a day later.
That was Bill de Blasio from New York.
Oh, de Blasio.
Oh, no, I missed that.
It was a while ago, but
Groundhog Day.
So it's a fake Punxsutawney Phil now?
Well, they dropped it, and then they had to announce its death, but they said it was totally unrelated to de Blasio dropping it. It just happened within a week.
Yeah. Are they going to do that with the guy from Philadelphia?
Say it again?
Are they going to do that with the guy from Pennsylvania? Or they can finally admit he was just dropped and it's a clone now?
Punxsutawney Phil. Well, there's been like a dozen of them. I visited Punxsutawney Phil last year. He's awesome.
Awesome. Okay, let me go through a couple tips on locals. LS8878 said age and term limits are now required.
About Fetterman. That was like bad Fetterman jokes.
You guys hear?
I'm still trying to put it together, Legal Vice.
It was just Fetterman. It was just Fetterman because there's a whole. Is he the real Fetterman or is he a clone?
Yes, and then with Fetterman, and then there were some rumors that he didn't have the tattoos on his forearm when he did.
So I was just saying, did someone drop the real Fetterman on his head? Now they're just had to replace.
Well, there are. I mean, look, I say I can't blame people for having beliefs. That there are people who genuinely believe it's not the same Fetterman, and there's not. I don't know. There's good arguments to support the thesis, even though it's probably not true. LS8878
also sent another tip. Our government, including the judiciary, has been totally corrupted and compromised. The people now have no respect for those institutions. Only dismantling and reworking the system will repair this debacle. Sounds like what you said, Dave.
Yeah. In my opinion, that's the only thing that would work. Just completely dismantling it and start over. In a peaceful way.
All right. I don't know where Mary was at this point, but then you have an abuse of expenses, and climate activists will be worse than it is if they all travel. Oh, okay. Yeah. When have climate activists said anything about other climate activists traveling? Where are the marches for Madonna and her plane, or Greta's travel, or anybody else? I mean, or Al Gore's house. Remember Al Gore, the famous movie, and his house uses the equivalent of a town in America for resources. So
yes, but he needs to get the message out there to the lowly hoi polloi so that they know what to do to alter their lifestyles. It's
it was about
just like the televangelists.
We're doomed in 15 years.
This is true. Dwayne's correcting us. Things will be done without a speaker. The executive will pick up more of the powers and responsibilities, mint those $1 trillion coins for whatever POTUS says the budget is. I don't think he's wrong.
Holy crap. Eric, I'm going to give you the link here. Cheesebro pleads here that we can pull this up and talk about it too. I'm talking about it at 1:30, people. After I criticize Greta Van Strunberg. What's it? Greta Thunberg for two reasons. Oh, yeah. She stepped in it twice this morning. We'll see.
Okay. And Philip Collins is going with the Jeff idea.
Yeah.
Now, that actually is the way the House was supposed to be ran. It was only 2 years with the idea that it was a hardship you had to go serve your time, then you do it, you go back home. They did not anticipate the professional politician, unfortunately. But let me see.
Why not?
A little bit more, and then I'll switch to the plea. Ask Viva his thoughts on the probability of Canada labeling apples right wing and trying to ban them.
Oh, the apples because of Pierre Poilievre chewing on an apple while he's...
That was funny.
I mean, that was so funny because it was so, what's the word? Theatrical. His demeanor. I mean, it was almost like a comedy skit. Stupid reporter. Can't answer one damn question. And it's an amazing thing. When you have a discussion with someone, just ask how, why, and then see what they can do in terms of answering. Classic.
That was the best one since Elon did it to the BBC guy.
It was even better than that because
it was so polished. His performance was magnificent. His pause, the crunch.
Yeah, the apple made it.
His timing. He had to be a theatrical performer at one point because
I think he's just worked on the what's the word, righteous. You have righteous indignation. He's working on the righteous arrogance. I still don't like Pierre Poilievre, but he's certainly the lesser of the evils. But that funny is funny, and it can't get funnier than an idiot journalist unable to even substantiate the premises of his question. It was classic.
You know what? Yeah, he reminds me of Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens, a little bit. That was almost a hitch slap in a way. Just that. Bubba D or whatever you call it.
I know who that is, but just tell me in case I don't.
All right, Christopher Hitchens is a thinker he died in 2011 or so. His brother's Peter Hitchens, but he was a British writer, commentator who had master debater. Don't go there, Seinfeld. And he would go around. He was part of the gang with Sam Harris, Dawkins, and others, one of the four atheists.
Yes.
But he got into a lot of trouble because he turned on the left after 9/11 and a lot of leftist policies before he died. But he's like a more modern William Buckley. But
Buckley?
You guys know Hitchens.
I know Hitchens.
Better
I miss him. He was a very witty guy. He always had a sharp wit, sharp intellect, and a funny line. He was a very sharp guy. I miss him.
All right. The constitutionalists and populists are sick of the status quo in Congress. The idea that maintaining corruption and lies because it's embarrassing is idiotic. Fix it or burn it down. Back to Dave. Question for all, especially after the affirmative action ruling. How are universities still allowed to have Black affinity housing and Black affinity spaces on campus?
Because racist.
That's actually a good question. After the ruling, I don't know, but
maybe it just hasn't been addressed. They need a case. I don't know.
They do.
Yeah. Well, I think some of that is also freedom of association too. Like there are, for instance, Jewish clubs. There are, so some of that maybe under.
Yeah, but this is government. This is government imposed.
What about the WASP Club, Nate? Can you have the WASP Club? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant Club. Can we have that?
Yes, you can. I'm assuming you can.
Ooh, okay.
If it's a private club, yeah. It's what was the name of the case?
Can we have a WASP club? Are you looking at the screen right now?
Well, we allowed one token member, but not on camera.
Yeah, he's not on camera, so it's
we're good.
I can be your token. Also, I'm Jewish. So.
Yeah.
I'm no WASP by any means.
David's Jewish.
WASP.
You guys, you don't realize.
WASP and the other guys
anymore. Yeah.
This is actually the largest grouping of attorneys with the statistical lowest overrepresentation of Jews that I've ever seen. Ordinarily, it's fun. When I went to Laval Law School in Quebec City, if you can imagine this, like McGill University, I don't know if it's 20%. There's a lot of Jewish students. I was in Laval University. There were over 1,000 students, 6 Jewish students that I knew of in the faculty of law, and it's fun.
All right, I'm going to share this, David. You brought up. And I have one comment on it because I get so freaking tired of this. Lawyer Cheesebro, who authored fake elector memos.
Yep.
Isn't that something that's in debate? I'm tired of headlines making a conclusion in the headline.
It's persuasion, Eric. They are getting you ready to believe the lie.
Right, but it's supposedly journalism. It's supposedly NPR. It's supposedly Washington Desk. And I'm just over it. How they just make statements like... one of the favorites is transphobe fill in the blank says, or noted racist fill in the blank, and it's like, whoa, wait, what? So go ahead, David. Yeah, take it away.
Oh no, I haven't read the article yet. I'm gonna read it in real time in 45 minutes. It's just, it's crazy. Like, we don't learn from the lessons from others. You had James O'Keefe, saying that the biggest mistake of his life was bearing false witness against himself, pleading to a lesser charge, and I forget the circumstances. You got Jenna Ellis, who agreed to a plea deal. It wasn't a plea deal. He agreed to some compromised resolution of the what was it, an ethics? It was an ethics violation or allegation about her practice, and then finds that the gift to all of that is an indictment in Georgia. It's like they take the bending of the knee and then they beat you over the head with your shin. I mean, that's what it is. So now you got Sidney Powell doing it, and now you got Cheesebro, who Cheesebro, don't cheese me, bro. Anyways, I'm gonna have to read that before I go live at 1:30, but it's nuts. It's terrible.
Okay. On a different note, and I'm really glad I have a huge diversity here, because this goes into modern day, and I'm fascinated by AI as well. How many of you seen this, where was it Praz Michael or Mitchell is claiming that the case should be thrown out because AI helped write the closing argument?
A losing closing argument is the okay.
I'm curious about that. I mean, for real, because AI is creeping in more and more and more. Is it technically that different than if he had an associate draft it and then take it over?
Well, number one question: did the Fuji's guy know that the lawyer was doing that? If he knew, it's a strategic decision, and you can't complain about it. If he didn't
even if he knew, I don't think it's a problem. I don't think there's any ethics problem with using it to help you draft an argument.
Well, I mean,
what they're saying, I think, though, is that the AI generated a closing argument that essentially admitted guilt in the beginning of it, and the guy read that without. So it's not necessarily just using AI. It's, in theory, I'm not saying the guy did this because I don't know that he did, but he gets the AI, he reads it. It's basically like, yeah, my guy did it, but look at this reason why he didn't meet this other element, instead of giving a good comprehensive defense. I think that's what they're saying, is he just kind of used it without proofreading.
Yeah, but in which case the tossing of the conviction would be basically potentially on ineffective representation and not the AI element of it.
Right, that is what they're alleging. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the AI is just a headline grabber. At the end of the day, the buck stops with the attorney. I mean, I've had interns that have pulled out their law school books and cited me Oklahoma contract law in a brief. And I'm like, okay, that's not right. You need a Michigan case, do this over. The buck stops with me. Doesn't matter who wrote it. It could be a machine or an intern.
Mm-hmm. Same thing.
What are your thoughts on AI? Because this isn't the only case. There was another case where a lawyer got busted because AI was generating content, literally citing examples that didn't even exist. And the judge happened to not be lazy and look.
The opposing party was the one who caught it initially. It's like, we can't find any of these cases, Your Honor.
I can't find these cases.
It's true. Yeah. They're not supposed to look them up. They're just supposed to say, "Oh, yeah, it's good case law."
Yeah, that's just bad lawyering. There's nothing wrong with the AI. I've used AI to come up with creative ways to say things because I'm tired of saying it the same way each paragraph all the way down. But don't use it for sources. Or if it kicks out a source, double check it and make sure that's what it says. I mean, it's just lazy lawyering at the end of the day, and that's where the buck stops with the lawyer.
So, how many of you use AI? Raise your hand.
Nope.
Oh, I've used it for my channel for helping with thumbnail design and sometimes descriptions and stuff like that. And also the title title. So I've used it before to some success.
I use it all the time. As a matter of fact, the tweet today.
YouTube all the time. Law firm never.
Okay, well, and that is the question. But what do you think the future holds with AI? Because I feel like as it improves, it's a very real threat, especially for paralegals and associates. And Chandler, please jump in and your thoughts there. You're muted. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'd like to know specifically what you're asking as far as, do I feel that AI is threatening paralegals currently? Is that the question, or
ultimately? Okay, this is the way I envision, because I'm not in the field as just an outsider. What it seems to me, a lot of associates, especially lower, are supposed to find pre-existing law, case law, things like that. It is impossible for a human being to brute force a massive amount of information in the same manner as AI. Now, ideally, they will then follow up the AI and check the work, so to speak. But again, you could have one person checking the work of AI versus a team of 20, 30, 40 even people who are researching the law. It would seem that just the pure massive ability to crawl through staggering amounts of LexisNexis makes it a very, very real threat to the profession. And how would you or anybody envision adjusting roles to keep jobs safe? I think this is important in a lot of fields, not just legal.
It's a good question. I mean, I would be very interested to see the capabilities of AI. I think that it could actually be used to streamline efficiency. I could see where, paralegals and legal assistants and legal researchers actually are able to use it in a way that benefits, their own work, so that they can more thoroughly find perhaps case law that they wouldn't have found otherwise. I think that as long as it goes towards, increasing efficiency, I'd like to see the actual capabilities of it, run it myself, and see how it changes the kind of work that I would do, and if it would increase efficiency or help me find case law that I would not normally be able to find or think to find. If it can help with search algorithms, if it can help with keywords, certain things like that, and make things quicker, then you could spend more time drafting arguments. You could spend more time on other things.
Well, I mean, the thing we all have to realize is, as I say quite often, today is the worst that AI will ever be again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta jump off, Eric. I just wanted to say thanks for letting me on, and we'll see you all guys on other streams.
See you.
All right, brother. Take care.
Take care.
What's in the back of that car? What's in the back of your car, MLS? He's
not doing that.
It's a body. There was I thought it was maybe a bicycle. I was trying to get in there and see what it was. I have not yet used AI for anything, and I've been meaning to use it to generate images for my children's book that I've written. I want to publish, but other than that, look, AI is going to be good for eliminating the low-level, mid-level type tasks. It might be better, at beating the most average or most chess players, but it's the human creativity and the human ingenuity I don't think will ever be able to be replicated. And I'm getting fed up with the AI generated posts. I think they have a smell to them. They're getting annoying, and it's going to turn people off as much as it turned them on in the original stages. All of these AI generated replies that have like an ostensibly human element to them, but they're clearly not human. I'm getting fed up with all of it. So I want the human aspect for its creativity and for its foibles.
You're in the uncanny valley stage is where you're at, right? It's gotten good enough that but you're in that uncanny valley where it's real, but just fake enough that it doesn't sit quite right. So, that shows you how far it's developed, because the distance from the uncanny valley to the real thing is pretty good.
It's amazing, and there are some genuinely human replies out there that seem AI generated themselves. It's just that there is. I don't know. I want to know that I'm dealing with a human, and when there's any sort of doubt to it, it's going to turn me off. Like with a lot of these auto reply, explanation summaries, like the Krasenstein brothers, I'm certain are using AI generated summaries that they package and sell, and it's making them a lot of money. And everybody's going to start doing the same thing, but it's going to piss everybody off in terms of style, format, and content sooner than later.
So wait, are you picking on Greta Thunberg about AI sounding people?
No, I'm picking on Greta Thunberg for two reasons. The first of which, watch it at 1:30. The first of which is when I don't use the word grift, but I'm using it now. Grifting off the Palestinian plight to promote her climate crisis agenda is distasteful. But then she did it in a way where one of the four people in her picture was just showing a plushie in the picture where they're criticizing Israel. The plushie happened to be a big octopus. And some people happened to pick up on what the historical reference of the Zionist octopus was, and then Greta had to take down the post and pretend it was just a doll for autistic kids. And people, want to shut their eyes and just say, "Oh yeah, cool, I'll believe that rubbish of an explanation." So, tune in to 1:30. Ich bin angry.
All right. Well, if we aren't worried about AI replacing lawyers, what about conmen? Because apparently in Kenya, you have a con man who is so effective. He managed to win 26 cases.
This guy should just be given his license right there.
He is a lawyer.
And make him to the bar. He's done his work. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Any thoughts? Have you seen that?
Well, I mean,
he won all 26 cases he handed 26-0, man. Damn, he's obviously knows what he's doing.
Well,
he got a license.
He put that Prince money to good use. Come on, nobody gets that. Okay, maybe I wasn't clear enough with the joke. The Nigerian prince
That's
died.
Nigeria. This is Kenya.
I'm blending two jokes here. Okay, I'm done. Never mind.
But did he put it toward, if he didn't put it towards law school, then what did he put it towards? He could have put it towards law school.
Well, but I think the AI. I could see AI replacing a lot of useless, borderline negligent lawyers, where there's a lot of people who get the degrees that don't. I mean, you wonder how, but AI could be good in that it will eliminate, conceivably, the human element of a lot of decision making that falsifies or makes problematic human decision making. So laziness.
How about legal Zoom or things like that? Do you think AI is good for that kind of thing? Like, I need a contract for prenuptial or some basic contracting type of things. Is that something you think, Steve? I think you do a lot of contract stuff. Is that something AI might be a good starting point?
Well, I mean, there are some documents that are pretty simple, and as long as you're within the parameters of what it can create, it may not be so harmful to do. I mean, not everybody's will is going to be legal Zoom worthy, depending on what your assets are and stuff like that. But if you're a basic person, it's not a complex document, really, at least not in this state. So something like that, or if maybe for a first draft or a brief or something, and you get all the burden of proof junk in and stuff like that. And what I can imagine is that story where you're going to give a closing argument in a case. A computer generates it and you just read it, whatever it says, which I'm not saying the guy did that because that seems incredible. Like, how can you not be crafting that yourself, even if there's a draft there for you, because you got to live that thing in front of the jury, right? You just read some argument from AI. That seems incredible that actually would have occurred. That's where
on a high profile case too.
Yeah, your thought process should be at the maximum, right? You've just completed this trial and stuff, and you've spent time with your client opposing these people. In theory, there's a jury there, and you're going to read an AI document. So I wonder if Dave's right, and it was more that's what his new lawyers are using to make it sound like he had ineffective counsel rather than just a not winning argument.
Interesting. Okay, so
have to go, actually. So I'm
see you, Chandler.
Later, Chandler.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
See you. All right. So back on that, one thing I can see AI being good at, especially in the legal Zoom aspect or whatever, is it can have a conversation. Like somebody who struggles filling out a form or a draft document, couldn't AI add more information? Like, I don't understand. And then an explanation. You need to do such and such.
It's a search engine. What we're describing is basically an iteration of what's always been around. Where AI will replace and be objectively more accurate is in medical diagnoses. I mean, things like that. Where
that's already being argued now. That there are some doctors who are saying that the diagnoses are better with AI at the moment. It's already happening.
And again, it would go back to the better for the most, but still there are going to be some very, very genius doctors who are going to, be more creative in diagnoses and treatment than AI. But my goodness, I mean, for a veteran. Oh, sorry.
I mean, less serious and less threatening. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm saying one of the reasons why it's happened to be better is because it takes the emotional aspect out of it. It, like, a lot of times it's not the symptoms you have, but how you describe the symptoms. And AI kind of removes that layer because of it. If you say I have this condition, but it's really extreme, then the doctor may be more prone to give you something that you really don't need, versus AI just saying this is just a cold.
Yeah, no, and it also has the ability to just weigh things, like not take any preference, like go the odds of this versus that, the odds of this versus that. I'm guessing.
Who was it that I was just talking? It might have been Dinesh D'Souza yesterday, but or Google knowing more about you than you know about you and being predictive. So you can go to the doctor and say this and that, and then AI can say, well, I've seen your Google history, I've seen what you've been searching, and I'm putting together things that you have not even put together in terms of coming to a diagnosis. There's this way of
Even more than that, I've seen what you've been eating. I've seen how often you walk. I've seen what you buy from the store. I've seen loyalty cards. Yeah, all that stuff. They know it all.
I seem to have pissed off Lars Larson in the chat. I don't know what I possibly said. It's not a search engine. Do not pretend you know what it works. You just don't. Okay, that's not a motivating an ad hominem. That's just amplifying it. In as much as I know anything about what I think AI functions like, this is my opinion.
One of the fascinating pieces of the guy who started the AI revolution, he was on 60 Minutes, and one thing he said is that the biggest fear is that AI will take over. And they were like, well, because there's two pieces why it can't take over now. Is because you have to get it from the digital world to the real world, which we're connecting, which we're connecting more and more every day. But the second piece of it, it's because no matter what things that we give it to do, what objectives, the best way to achieve any objective is more control. So, the objective for world peace. Well, to have that main objective, the sub-objective is more control. Well, if I can control everybody and stop everybody and do this and do that and take away them as much rights and have more control, then I can make that major objective. So it's not the main objectives we give to AI, but how it tries to obtain them through those secondary objectives. That's the fear. So they were like, eventually, when have you known in any situation where the less intelligent thing is subservient to the more intelligent thing? And they said eventually AI is going to be more intelligent than us, and that's going to be something. And somebody put in the chat Skynet, but that's essentially what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
They have changed the acronym from AI to something else. I was listening to the guy.
LLM. It's a language learning model.
Yeah. Who's the guy that created the original iteration? He was just on Rogan a couple of weeks ago.
Christopher Boozy.
Oh, God.
Jeez, I was like, no, it wasn't Christopher Boozy.
Nate, we're talking intelligence, artificial, real here. Come on.
It is artificial.
Well, I don't remember his name, but he's the guy who did OpenAI with Elon.
Yeah, hold on. Where's my phone? It just has.
It's John Connor.
No, the doctor who grabbed the hand and researched it for Skynet. John Connor is the one who shot them all.
No, John Connor's was the kid of Sarah Connor.
Yes. Right, and in the future, he's the one who fought the war against the machines, and he came back into anyway.
And Terminator 2 they killed the guy.
You think you know all about Skynet. You don't know anything.
I'm thinking of Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, so that's the one he was just on. Okay, fine, that's it.
Yeah. I knew he was the CEO of OpenAI. I didn't remember his name, but. There's other problems with it, but yes, LLM, it's a language learning model. Technically speaking, it's not AI, it's ML or machine learning, because AI has to have self-knowledge. There's a lot of arguments with it. And the search engine, while you've got Lars very, very angry, isn't completely wrong. It's just very much oversimplified, because a language learning model is they're grabbing everything that's ever been said, all this information, and then running information against it to pull out. But that's problematic too, because what you feed in it, garbage in, garbage out, that's one of the problems with AI. And I don't know if you've read articles about OpenAI has gotten dumber over time, like with mathematical problems. It used to be at like 95%, is down to like 7% or 8% or whatever on mathematical things. I'm surprised Kurt is quiet. Kurt, you've got to be reading up on this with your background.
Just trying to, with the way things are going, just trying to pay attention to what everyone's saying. I don't have a lot to say at the moment, to be honest.
Now I don't want
AI has got him.
I don't want to be rude, and I don't want to start the exodus, but I've got to go stretch my sciatica before I go live again. For anybody who's noticed, AI, if I could get an AI solution to my pain in my sciatic, which is actually a pain in my ass, I started doing the figure 4 stretch, and I've done the what do they call it? Flossing the frickin' thing. Anyhow, I got to go stretch it up before I go live at 1:30.
Hey, Viva, the one thing I want to before you go, I want to ask you about. Please. Now these left-wing students are screaming cancel culture because obviously they came, students from Harvard, Yale, and all these other big students, all these big schools came out, pro-Palestine. It was Israel's fault that they were attacked. But now they're screaming that cancel culture, because they are saying something that the mainstream media doesn't like. So all their jobs have gotten rescinded.
Cancel culture isn't real, right?
First they're saying cancel culture isn't real. So now it's interesting how they're the ones who are canceling everybody from coming to the school, but now they have the fear that they're being canceled.
There's two parts of this. There's the what my father would say growing up is, like rubbing his belly and saying, "Good for you, you get what you deserve" type thing, like the chickens are coming home to roost. And then there's how I actually feel about it. I don't think any of the January 6th should be in jail for a decade, but that's the rule. So lock up the ones who just did what they did the other day, not because I think it's justice, but because I think it's fairness. And so the pilot who tweeted something out, there I can understand someone losing their job because there's other concerns above and beyond free speech. Penalizing the students, I'm sort of inclined to agree with Vivek on this, that they're young, impressionable kids doing what they think is right at the time. Ruining their lives over their speech is not going to do anything to teach them the error in their ways. It's actually just going to confirm it. And so it depends on the level and what's going on here. But someone working at a hospital.
I have no sympathy for all these people who are openly supporting terrorism, calling for the destruction of Jews and the Jewish state. They're anti-Semitic, Hitler-supporting bastards, all of them, and they need to be eliminated from the scourge of this earth because they are the problem.
But here's the first problem is that is being used as the catchphrase to lump any and all criticism. So if I say I support terrorism, I still think people I'd like to know who are the ones that are saying it so I can know to avoid them. But the one saying I support Palestine, and then people lump it together and say, well, they support that's sort of not an intellectual what's the word, when you switcheroo game. That's the excuse to say shut him down for saying it. Let him say it. It'll be unpopular. They'll suffer some blowback. But I mean, doxing them, I don't agree with doxing your enemies. I'm not going to agree with doxing it here because I don't like what they're saying. But
there is an Overton window, and at least for my part, they are way, way outside of it. This is an attack that, if population adjusted for America, as I point out in my video coming out later today on the subject, would have been 40,000 Americans dying. All right, that's the scale of this thing. It is a terrorist attack against as a religious enemy. It is based on religious sentiment. It is based on this anti-Jewish sentiment, and I think it's completely deplorable. All these people parading the streets saying, from the river to the sea, and there shall be one solution. We all know what that means. These people are calling for the open extermination of Jews, and it is completely unacceptable. These people deserve everything that's happening to them. I can't believe some of the reprehensible shit I'm seeing some of these people say. It's unfathomable, but it's happening.
I'm disgusted by them too, but I'm going to go with David on this a little bit because we spend all of our time saying cancel culture, stop the cancel culture. We don't believe in it. Kanye shouldn't have been canceled. It's up to people or whatever. He can say what he wants. It's offensive. I want to hear what they're saying. And yes, there is a part of me that delights in the fact that these same people who would be calling everybody a transphobe, this, that, then would be trying to cancel them left and right, are getting a taste of their own medicine. But I'd be slightly hypocritical if I didn't admit that, yeah, there is kind of a double standard. I'm kind of leaning on my show partner Mark's stance that maybe this is the only way to make cancel culture die, is if everybody suffers, then maybe we can all step back and say, okay, this cancel culture thing has got to freaking stop.
Well, but the term cancel culture has also been sort of abused or broadened to say if a doctor comes out and says, I won't treat Jews or blacks or whomever, it's not cancel culture to say that they get fired, because you're talking about speech that dictates conduct that's relevant to other issues. The cancel culture, what's the cancel culture in doxing the students? I don't know what was involved in the doxing. If it's
they have bans with the pictures.
Yeah, they have bans with the pictures.
And that's a little.
Well, but it's a little creepy unless they sign a public petition or they make public social media posts and then say I wanted attention, but not that much attention.
People are going to get sued for defamation. Those people are going to get sued for defamation because they said, well, because their group signed on, therefore they signed on, which is not the same thing. So, like those people at Harvard, a lot of those people have a cause of action for defamation. But a lot of people also are just in the streets. I've seen the rallies, as I'm sure you have on the news. I've seen the rallies happening at the student centers in the United States and abroad. I've seen the rallies happening in the United States. I hear this, let's have a ceasefire. It's like, bitch, we don't get to have a ceasefire. You just did an attack on us and now you want a ceasefire? What kind of crap is this? That's not how this works. This is like calling for a ceasefire on September the 12th. No,
that's true, but then we have
this is ridiculous.
And then we have
overwhelming response. Elimination of the enemy. None of this proportionality bullshit. Let's go in hard. I'm pro-Israel. Let's go.
Kurt, the problem is we're roughly the same age, but I remember I've lived through Intifada number 1, Intifada number 2. This time around, this same pattern. This
calm things down.
No, but it leaves everybody blind, though, gentlemen.
Oh, well, good logic can carry. I gotta go. I do have to go though, so sorry. I don't want to be. Everybody, see you soon. And not to compete, Barnes is live on the quartering right now. I'm going live in 7 minutes, but there's time to rewatch in rerun. So everyone, stay here and watch me in rerun.
Well, there's going to be a redirect from this to Davis' channel when we close.
And I've got, speaking of which, I've got someone from PragerU, I think, coming on today, so it'll be interesting. Later on, I got the first hour of the show. I'm picking on Greta Thunberg, not Greta Van Susteren. Okay, ich bin out, people. Go. Enjoy the day.
Later, brother.
All right, so Joe, you're right on time. You're the perfect person for this topic of discussion. What are your thoughts about cancel culture that is currently going the other way? People who are typically of the leftist, shall we say?
Well, let me just tell them what it is.
And universities are losing their jobs. They're getting pictures up on vans to the point that their families are getting harassed and things like that. What are your thoughts when cancel culture goes the other way? Doctors getting fired and on down the line.
Well, I think it's important to also let them know why they're getting canceled, right? So it's the people that the way there are doctors, lawyers, and students who have gotten jobs from universities like Harvard, Yale, and all that. They've had their jobs, they've been fired and had their jobs rescinded. They are now complaining that they are being canceled because of their political opinion. They have an opinion on the subject, and they because of their opinion, they are being canceled. Their opinion is that we support the Palestinians and we think Israel's really at fault. That's essentially what their opinion is. Now, some have backtracked, and just like Eric said, some have been doxxed, some have been, all these bad things are happening to them. But now they're saying that it's unfair because they should not be canceled just for giving their opinion. Now, the irony is that these are the same people that were canceling people because of the transgender stuff. They were saying that you're a bigot, so you shouldn't have your job.
Anything that disagreed with their viewpoint.
Yes,
essentially.
So now they're on the opposite side, and they're saying that this cancel culture is wrong. So now we're asking you, how do you feel about that in that context?
I always love when Joe has a pause.
It's like, because it's on one end you're like it's good, but I'm against it.
It feels good, but it goes against what we claim. Is my stance. It's like,
I mean, I had this conversation on my show in the context of there's actually been a bill that was floated in the Senate. Rubio put forward a bill to revoke visas for anyone who is here and has supported Hamas or any other terror organization. And I took a poll in my chat there, and 76% agree with Rubio. Someone actually pointed out that there's a case called trying to remember what it was. There's a case in 1945 or 1946 or something, which basically said you can't, that would be illegal. Like that statute wouldn't fly. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what it was. I'm struggling right now.
No, I know the case you're talking about, but you can't.
It was where there was a communist.
Yeah.
It was after there was a communist who was, they were looking to actually revoke a visa. It was like this very topic. And they said your First Amendment rights apply to people who are visiting here, not just to American citizens, and that this is a violation of their First Amendment rights, that they're being punished for something like that. So I actually was questioning whether Rubio's statute, if it would, his proposed legislation would actually fly through, and I was asking my audience whether they wanted it. And I was surprised to see that 76% of them say they agree with Rubio, that they said that they should be revoked if they express that opinion.
Why are you surprised? I mean, that honestly, I feel like this is human nature. We don't like it if we're on the bottom end of something, we're going to complain against it. But if we're on the top end of it, then we're happy with that solution. And that's why we have free speech. It's why we have these things. And so those uncomfortable things, we have to deal with it, even though we don't like it, in my opinion.
So my take on it is and the distinction that they were making in some of the super chats was like, there's a difference between supporting terrorism and I mean, when you're supporting terrorism, you're basically promoting something that is against the interests of in our national interests. My take on it was I wouldn't just, so I said, so if someone would give a heart to something that's support and a tweet, something that's innocuous in that level of support to something that's supporting terrorism, would you say that this is a person who should be punished? To me, that doesn't make any sense. I think there has to be some sort of level of materiality to the support, and I don't think that just talking it should be something like that. But let's imagine that they went much further than that. Let's imagine that they were actually going so far as to like helping raise money for a terrorist organization. And remove it from Hamas, because that's going to be something that's very charged. But I mean, if someone's going to go and raise money for some sort of terrorist organization,
Muslim Brotherhood, we can go shift it over.
Yeah, like whatever, something that make it Asian. You know what I'm saying? Some sort of like terrorist Asian thing. Like how would we feel about that? And I have to do that in order to help strip away my own natural personal feelings about this sort of thing. The IRA is
even better. IRA is a good one.
So someone's raising money. So to me, that if that's what their objective is, rather than just espousing some views, so that's what I would sort of be looking for. That they actually have to be actively aiding, using their words to actively aid in ways that we sometimes we recognize that words transcend just being words. If you're using words to commit a crime, to conspire to commit a crime or something like that, so someone is using their words in a way that they're, let's say, aiding a terrorist organization. To me, I don't think that that's considered cancel culture. But if someone is just basically tweeting out stuff, even though I think that
what if they're going around giving speeches? What if they're at a university? What about Brandenburg? What about Skokie? I mean,
right? No, and I'll tell you something.
This
question, Skokie was, and those of you who are unfamiliar, too young to be unfamiliar with Skokie, which is probably anyone who's younger than the two of us here, because it was like in the early '80s. But Skokie was a rally that the KKK was holding, or was neo-Nazis that were basically holding, and the ACLU came out defending their right for them to come out and have that rally. This is back when the ACLU actually stood for what they actually acted like and performed in ways that their name suggests, rather than just being leftist propaganda. So while I think that people who step forward for Hamas are usually of moderate intellect at best, and have and know very little about the situation, and haven't really thought through in certain ways, or they were culturally raised with certain perspectives about it. Like I think some certain Muslims, the history that they learn from the time that they're young is like basically embedded in them, and largely cherry picked in order to paint Israel as being this oppressive regime that's out to commit genocide, apartheid state, open air prisons, and all these other ridiculous ways that they frame what's been happening there. So, but putting that aside and just landing my plane here. Yeah, I think these people are relatively moderate intellect at best, usually, but I think that they shouldn't be. I do not think that they should be canceled for expressing that opinion. So unless they're raising money, like I said, unless they're actively supporting a terrorist organization, so at that point, I think that then that's obviously that's going to be a line that's somewhat subjective of at what point are they like supporting versus just expressing an opinion. And that's a little bit more of a murkier area, and I recognize that. But I don't think that just talking and expressing support is something that that should. And I disagreed with my chat on that. My chat was like, "No, Rubio's right."
I want to throw a curveball in this, in the sense of how many times has today's terrorist organization becomes tomorrow's freedom fighter, and then they go back. I'll name one: the Taliban. Right? Before it was the freedom fighters, right, for Afghanistan against the Russians. Then they became American. Then it became this. So it's when you don't get me wrong, Hamas is horrible. I'm with you guys, but it's because it's so free flowing that I don't want to be a free speech absolutist, because I do think there's got to be some controls, but it's like when you start when the government starts saying, I don't like what you're saying, so I want to punish you in some way. I think that, and we all clap that day. Then when it becomes, well, you know what? I think Jesus was was bad, or I believe this person was bad, and then it's like, well, hold on, now, but we all agree with that, and isn't that the famous thing, the free speech dies to a thunderous round of applause, and I think we that's the reason why we always push back on any type of encroachment onto, hey, I hate, like you're saying, the ACLU, I hate what you're saying, but I'm still going to defend your right to say it.
This is not because I want to hear you say it, but because I don't want to have my rights impinged tomorrow.
Correct.
Go and ask
I think there's more to it than that, because I've seen some of these protests down here in North Carolina at the Blue University down the road here, and somebody's teaching these kids when they get there to think like this. And I think if you're going to celebrate Palestine as a concept that shouldn't be oppressed and fly their flag, like if Israel were to say, you know what, you're right, we'll move to Australia, you can have it now. What the hell kind of society would they have over there? It's an absolute disaster. It's completely the opposite of any kind of Western values. Palestine is not about free speech or treating women equal or LGBTQ or anything else. It's completely backwards and nasty situation over there. A lot of them just like Palestine because they view Israel as some kind of surrogate for Western culture in general, and anything is better than Western culture. And there are definitely people near me who have the little stickers with the paragliders. That is celebrating people who rampage through neighborhoods, killing women and children. In 9/11, the terrorists tried to attack the Pentagon. They attacked commerce centers, and it was evil and it was terrorism. These people, if you can call them that, went through people's homes just to murder the people. They weren't hitting something in Tel Aviv, a defense thing of Israel or something like that. They were just murdering who they could find. And if anybody can think, well, I'm just young and I just happen to think this way, so I'm going to celebrate these paragliders because Palestine is somehow oppressed. That's awful and disgusting. I wouldn't work with you or tolerate talking to you. Now, that's a little different than Palestine. Then I just think you're just stupid, okay? That's not to approve of everything Israel does or that we should fight their wars for them, but the idea that Palestine their flag should be flown is like, if only they could be free. Palestine's not free. Even if Israel weren't there, the people would not be free. How in the hell can you think that? Have you seen the Middle East? So my concern is, at least when these people are coming out saying the stupid things they're saying, is it indicates the garbage dump education they're getting from the universities. And if you want to cancel people, I'd like to see these professors who are teaching people just to hate Western civilization have their asses canceled.
The reason that the universities support this is this goes back to the 70s at OPEC, when they started getting big money after the oil embargo, and they started, that they started investing in American universities, literally giving them grants of millions of dollars a year, provided they would put forward a chair. They would create a chair and a curriculum that is pushing forward pro-Palestinian ideology.
It goes further than that, dude. It's Angela Davis. It's a Black Panthers. It's a Weather Underground. I mean, there's an entire stain, and we're covering that on America's Untold Stories, if you want to see, because a lot of this is tied into communism too. Goes back to the Soviet Union supporting Palestine because we went against them when Israel was created in the 40s. So we go on and on. There's a lot of a leftist tie-in, if you will, in supporting anything that is anti-American or anti-America's friends. And it goes on, it goes deep. I got a couple rants I'm going to roll through before we end. Before you leave, Jeff, I know you're about to get out. Entry required said Legal Vices. How to go about voting absentee once I sell my home and property back in America.
Just
just do it. Go through your state. You can vote absentee everywhere. The beauty of being an American, that not only are you double taxed wherever you live, you also get to vote.
So even without property, I mean, you're same state just because you're from there?
Yep.
Okay, great.
It's because your last place of domicile.
Yeah, but don't put Puerto Rico. Don't put Puerto Rico. Then you lose your right.
Yeah, once you've established domicile, it remains your domicile until you establish a new one. So your last state of domicile would be the correct state to vote in when you move overseas. Unless you move to Puerto Rico, in which case, no.
Lost Core 23 sent this in a while ago. So I'm late to the show. Excuse if already answered, but what's your all's take on potentially criminals take that Sydney bending the knee is more that the prosecutor didn't have anything more than a threat on Trump? Sydney Powell, I guess. I don't know. We didn't really get into that. So I apologize.
She pleaded for a reason. I think if they had her, it must have been good enough to get her.
All right, last Rumble rant. Uncivil law. This is from Entry Required. Uncivil law. Wow. You surprised me with your strong words. I'm happy with your words and agree with them. Good to see someone I respect taking a stand. Texas is the right place for you.
Signed in Netanyahu.
And then, of course, they had to sneak in a couple super chats. Thank you very much, Kimmy Jo and Justin Wright. Oh, boy. We're wrapping up, folks. Anyway, Joe, please explain why Palestine isn't occupied by Israel and they're not oppressed by Israel, because you have someone in the chat who claims that they're being oppressed.
How about because the Jewish people got there first? The kingdom of David goes back.
Just put aside, like, just as far
years.
as, and this is okay. So I'll be clear about this. In what way are they freaking for the last 17 years? In what way were they occupied? I mean, there's so many just misstatements of just basic fact. Like literally for the last 17 years, they had their own governance. They weren't allowed to come into Israel. There was a blockade there designed to keep out weapons. But I mean, in what way? You tell me, in what way are they occupied? That's what you have to, and this is something that, like, people are like, yeah, the occupation's wrong. What the hell way are they occupied? They're so occupied that they were able to put together a plan for the past year where they staged a city that looked exactly like this city and practiced this account. And practice this. If they're occupied, they would never have been able to pull this damn massacre off. I
think it's the wrong word. I think they probably should say besieged or something.
They're
because
not. They
Israel,
haven't been besieged.
Well, I'm trying
Israelis there.
Hold on. Israel does control the water. It does control the electricity and turns it on and off. Now, I don't know what the proper term is for that. It's not occupied. I agree. And besieged is tough unless they turn it off.
The occupation's for the West Bank. It's the West Bank. It's the illegal settlement. The UN, which said those were illegal settlements in the West Bank.
The United States recognizes Israel and does not recognize Palestine. As far as I'm concerned, they can occupy anything they want.
It's the most amazing thing.
It's true, but that's what they're talking about.
This is so shocking to me. Everyone keeps forgetting. They put aside Israelis for a second. If you're like if you're a strong believer in America first, I can't even understand how it is that because 2 weeks ago, that this regime there, this terrorist organization there, came across a border, flew across, and butchered 30 Americans, and took 14 Americans hostage.
It was 9/11 level. I agree.
Yeah.
It was 9/11 level or worse.
Forget about the 1,400 Israelis. What I'm saying is put them aside. They're literally holding American hostages now. And right now, for the last 2 weeks, they've been holding 15 hostages, and it's like we hear all these Americans saying like, "Oh, these poor hostage takers," and it's like I don't understand it. It's the most amazing thing that everyone doesn't care about the fact that there's 14 American hostages there. When there were American hostages taken by the Shah of Iran, this was a daily thing that we were talking about every single day. Can you believe these hostages are being held here? And no one gives the slightest damn about these Americans. That imagine if you were there, or your cousin was there, or someone was on a Christian pilgrimage. And that's one of the people who's there, who was basically taken. It just feels to me like I don't even understand how it is that if no one cared so much about the Gazans 3 weeks ago, no one cared about it, but it's like because they went on this butchering spree, all of a sudden now we have to have a fixation about how terrible people who knew nothing about this crisis or this situation that's been brewing for 75 years all of a sudden became instant experts and say, oh wow, these hostage takers are really terribly oppressed people, and like we really need to feel bad for them. And like, I don't even, it's astonishing to me. It really
Joe,
is.
are you going to get Hassan
they're told
to come on your show?
They're told that the Israelis are colonizers, and so that means you could kill any of them. And the way it ties in here, hey, we're colonizers too. So if you want to kill somebody that represents America, it's just kill your opponents. Is the philosophy being taught at some of the universities around here?
Well, let's just call it.
I do need to bail quick. I just want to say hashtag
care,
free Puerto Rico.
Very fair.
See y'all
later, brother.
Great seeing you, brother.
Bye.
I think we should just call it what it is, though. It's they're trying to make some justification for the horrors that happened, right? They're trying to say, well, what about this? Because it's classic whataboutism, right?
Sure.
Now I do understand, and we can just be honest. The Palestinians have a beef, yes, but the way you settle that beef isn't massacring people at parties and going, that it's way above. So I agree with Joe 100%. Taking hostages, massacring people, and killing them on the streets, and then saying, well, we have this beef over here about land. That's not how that doesn't convince me to be on your side. You know what I mean?
A good analogy is if some Native Americans went into a city right now and massacred and kidnapped and harmed a bunch of people. Well, hey, we took their land. It's the exact same thing. I mean, you could apply it here.
And the last point I want to make is this. There's a difference between a movement and a mob, and here's how you can find that distinction. Okay, a movement says, we do not like the way this situation is. This is what we want to ultimately see. So we're going to be protesting and doing what we can to try and get from this spot here to that spot there. And that end goal has to be something that's reasonable. It can't be something that's crazy. So, and we've seen movements like this throughout the last century over and over again be successful. You could talk about women's rights. You could talk about black rights. You could talk about gay rights. Where they said, look, women, we want a right to vote. We want to have the equal pay. We want to have these certain things. If women had come out there with something unreasonable, saying we want that no man should ever have a job again, everyone would be like, you're Michigan, you're stupid, you're crazy person. I don't want to even hear from you. So and people would have been like, that doesn't make any sense. What they wanted was something they had an end game, which wasn't like the utter destruction of the other side. It wasn't like gay rights was all about, we're not going to rest until every family is engaged in homosexuality. It's like, it has to be something that's reasonable.
Joe, I'd say that that's a bad example because feminism has gone in to destroy the patriarchy.
Right. And yes. And yes, but that's when it goes. That's when it goes from being a movement into movement is I want to get from here to here. I want to move from this spot to that spot. And the whole thing with the Free Palestine movement is, over and over again, it's not a civil rights thing. This is not a human rights thing. Because if it was, there were so many times that Israel has said, okay, we'll give you your own state. We'll give you your own state. You know what you need to do? Just recognize that that we have a right to exist, and you're not going to, as the day you have this state, start using it to try and utterly destroy us. So you're going to stop trying to kill us. That's not a high ask. I mean, it doesn't even mean that they'll actually live up to it. Just pretend you will. Just say you will. They can't even say it.
The frustrating part is, didn't Israel offer the two-state solution? Like to the PLO, they said, we'll give you the two-state solution. We'll give you everything you want. And they said no. Clinton was there. They said, we don't want it. And matter of fact, it was so shocking that the Palestinians were shocked at how much Israel was giving up. They were like, well, you're ready to give all this up? And they still said no. And it's like at that point, what can you do?
And that's why the BLM movement, that wasn't a movement, that was a mob, because they were like, it's all about justice. Well, what's justice? Justice to you is not as different than justice is to you or to you or to you. Everyone has different perspectives as to what's justice. So there's nothing you can do to satisfy that. If you can't satisfy a mob, you can't start capitulating to them, because basically what they're saying is we want to seek your utter destruction. And that's why I'm saying is this whole Free Palestine thing, because they have no agenda short of we need the other side annihilated, because we cannot tolerate the idea that Jews control an area in the Middle Eastern portion of the world. That's what it's ultimately about. It's not about protecting the indigent, the poor, or people who have no money or just trying to get a leg up like you or me. It's a matter of we need to have Palestinians there to constantly be trying to do whatever they can to eradicate the state of Israel, to kill any Jew who wants to retain any sort of control or authority over the region. Even their friends, Egypt, which is a relative friend to Israel, the president of El Sisi, the leader of Egypt, said the biggest concern in the world with migrating people away from that area is that the biggest concern we have is that there must always be a Palestinian fight on behalf of that. Why? Imagine Canada is saying the most important thing in the world to us is that there are constantly Mexicans streaming across the American border. You'd be like, why the hell do you care that should be happening? But that's the nature as to what the objective is here. It's not about standing up for poor people who are being oppressed. It's a matter of we have to stop Jews from having control of this area.
But you do, and I don't want to just, it's funny because I support everything you say, but I think you do have to recognize the illegal settlements in the West Bank. Like I think if we just ignore that and pretend that that's not a major issue here, and see, I feel two ways about it. Israel gave over Gaza, right? We were out of Gaza. They kicked everybody out of Gaza, and now look what's happening in Gaza, right? They're attacking Israel. So it's like, well, we gave you this. But the big issue, because the UN has called those settlements illegal, everybody considers those settlements illegal. So, and that's what most of the people are saying. We want this land, and these are our settlements. Now, I do think Israel has a claim to it. I will say this is an issue, but that's really the issue. The illegal settlements that the UN have called illegal in the West Bank. And the interesting part is the West Bank isn't where you have all these issues. It's the place when they gave up that has all the issues. So I think it's a little more complicated than we just want. And again, I do agree. They chant, we want the whole thing. We want to kick the Israelis out. I agree with that 100%. I think that's wrong. But I do think there is a legitimate issue in the West Bank. Not Gaza. Gaza is a whole different story. The West Bank.
Well, right now, I think that anybody could agree that, well, let's let a little bit of time pass and address the specific, very pointed situation that happened a couple of weeks ago, tomorrow, and maybe let them bury their dead and let them resolve this very, 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 very hot point issue. Last super chat, Justin Wright. Or
maybe not while they're holding 200 hostages. Maybe that's
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Again, we got. Let's table the other discussions for a minute.
It's like what Joe said. A land dispute doesn't mean you hold 200 hostages. That's ridiculous, right?
Agree. Justin Wright. I think it's for Steve. I worked detainee ops for SOTF Charlie in Iraq. When I got home from dealing with the HVTs, I was disgusted with how willfully ignorant the West is. HVTs, high value targets, I'm guessing.
And I wouldn't argue with the willfully ignorant part either, in large measure. Look at what people have claimed to think was true in just the last few days, which obviously isn't. Spurred on by the hospital bombing, for one.
Which never happened. Israel wasn't responsible, and the hospital wasn't bombed anyway, and it was all Hamas because they have cheap ass rockets.
It's crazy,
right? That's a whole nother thing. So to wrap things up, this obviously will be solved in the comments below. I look forward to all the dialogue. Please comment on the video and what you think, and remember to subscribe if you like this kind of discussion, which happens every Friday with different players, but always a great discussion. Nate, what do you have going on?
Nothing. I'm just continue on with the videos. We just had another video hit 1 million views. Woohoo!
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. That was, it was a nice little public interest piece about a woman who said that something happened to her, which I can't see on YouTube because it's a little yellow. And come to find out, she was after the guy's money, and the text message revealed that she slept with him for money. So, that was pretty interesting. And then, we got some other stuff. We have, for instance, a couple of the TV judge was just fondled by a police chief. So we're going to be covering that story. Judge Hackett, I don't know if you ever saw her show, but she's just had to testify in the trial against the police chief, who she was at a law enforcement conference and just got fondled. We also have the cheerleader from the former Cincinnati Bengals cheerleader who is hot on fire, who actually had to plead guilty to assaulting a teenage boy because she was teaching in a high school, which I think is another interesting case. And obviously, we're going to be covering the situation with the Supreme Court, with the government, with the Senate and the House are trying to put measures to limit the terms of the Supreme Court.
You mean pack the court?
And have it pack the court by having a new Supreme Court justice. appointed every 2 years. So those are the fun things we're going to be covering. And, it's just Nate the lawyer. You know who I am. You know where to find me. Steve.
Tomorrow I'm going to do my normal stream, and let's look at the Richard Allen case of what the hell happened with his lawyers walking out of the courtroom yesterday, withdrawing only hours after telling the judge how terrible it would be if they were off the case. Something weird there. Look at some other major cases, and I'm going to make this comment on Joe's channel. It's of course always good, but if you ever miss it when his father's on, you're doing a disservice to yourself. That's a real treat.
Great Logic. Shout out to Great Logic.
Yep.
Kurt.
Thank you.
Yeah, so actually, perhaps ironically, perhaps not, but in about 15 minutes or so, I'm going to actually be posting a video that I scripted and filmed with editing relating to the Israeli war. So I try to, as best I can, summarize what happened based on the best available facts that I had, at least at the time I recorded it, which is a couple days ago, and tried to, sort of try to give some perspective on the whole thing. So you can look forward to that posting. I'm experimenting on my channel with a new format. So I've been posting these videos like twice a day, but I've been spending time actually. So this is my first experimentation with scripted content. I have 2,500 videos on my channel, and they're all unscripted. So this month I'm experimenting with scripted content and seeing how that works for me, seeing if it drives different results. So check in for that on Uncivil Law and let me know if any of this is working for any of you guys. Also, we have Thursday Night Friends Day, although it'll be probably renamed Thursday Night Thunderdome, where every Thursday night we do a law summary show in a hopefully fun, entertaining, somewhat laid-back style. So you can check in for that.
All right, Joe. And now, normally on this show, we like to give Joe the last word and things like that. And the running joke is he starts to say something and gets cut off. But with the subject at hand that we just discussed, I'm not going to do that this week. So, Joe, just what do you have going on?
I'm Good Logic. I do what I do and the way that I do it.
Okay. Everybody check out Good Logic on the channel. And I hope you like what you're seeing here. Please consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.
Go.